Hello guys, this is Saruto Uchiha Storm here and welcome to my channel. Today I am doing what if Naruto was a demon fox and was sent to fairy tale. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Chapter 4. Thanks again. Fox-san, a fat man with a small beard, said as he nodded towards Fox and Kurama as they unloaded the man's merchandise from the caravan. Those damn Vulcans are always looking for my wine. Don't think about it, Mato-san, Fox said as he put down the last piece of merchandise, a barrel of wine. This was one of Fox's frequent missions, escorting Mato's booze-filled motorcade. He has been doing this for 6 years, so he gets along with Mato. Besides, it's nice to visit Crocus from time to time. Well, here's the usual payment, and a little more. Mato said as he handed Fox a bag full of jewels, the currency in this world. It was like Rio, just a different color and symbol, and a big bottle of sake. This is my best sake. Go enjoy it, boy. Thank you, Mato-san, Fox said as he sealed the drink in his left arm. By the way, did you get that package? Yeah, it took me a while, but I got it, Mato said as he handed a small package to Fox, who nodded as he took it and hid it in his bulletproof vest. I'll see you next month, Mato-san, he said as the man greeted him. That was easy, Karama said as he looked at Crocus, the blooming capital, and it was full of flowers, with petals flying in the air, a fitting place for the king's house. So what are we going to do now? Training or sightseeing? It's been a while since we've seen the kingdom, Fox said, humming. Let's take a break today and enjoy ourselves. It works for me, Kurama said as he yawned widely and started to take a nap. Fox simply ignored his lazy partner. It has always been like this since it hatched. He remembered it like it was yesterday. 5 years ago. What an unusual egg, said the 14-year-old Fox, as he held up the large egg with orange markings. I wonder if it's a dragon egg? Natsu-san might want to see this. As he pondered, the egg began to shake. Blinking, Fox looked at the egg as it began to crack. It then exploded as something unexpected came out of the egg. It was an orange cat with wings. Fox stood there, looking at the creature in surprise, before his eyes narrowed at how weak he felt. The poor thing was frail, and she had no magical aura. His eyes widened when he saw that he was dying, giving little coughs. Shit, he cursed as he removed his cloak and folded it into a bed, gently placing the newborn on it. Making some hand signals, his hands started to glow green. Fortunately, the sealing scroll had medical ninjutsu. It wasn't his strong point, but he can do the basics. He put his hands on the cat's body, trying to see what was wrong. After a minute, he saw that his magic coil was almost empty. Since his arrival here, he learned that since chakra is the life source of all living creatures in the elemental nations, magic was the life source here. Damn, he cursed as he unfolded the scroll on his back, hoping to find something to save this creature. She flipped through it quickly before seeing anything. Chakra transfusion? She read it before nodding. She took out a blank scroll, and placed it on the floor, a brush, and some ink. In a quick move, she took out the necessary seals. Then she gently removed the cat from his cloak and placed it on the parchment. Please work, she said as she pulled out a kunai and cut her palm. He made a fist, causing blood to cover his hand. Fine. He slammed his hand down on the scroll, and a second later, the seals began to glow. He could feel a chakra coiling inside the cat's body. He kept his hand on the seal as chakra pathways formed within the cat, until he no longer died. He breathed a sigh of relief as he withdrew his hand from the seal. He felt that his chakra reserves had been depleted, but he could easily recover from that. He looked up when he heard a small yawn. He saw the orange cat looking at him with red eyes before smiling. Fox looked at him before smiling too. Flashback end. He smiled fondly as he remembered that day. He named the little creature after his deceased friend, as his fur has the same color, as well as the same attitude when he is with others. It was probably a side effect of having his chakra transferred to him. Fox suddenly stopped as Kurama's ears pricked up. The two of them suddenly disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves that flew with the petals. In a forest just a mile away from the castle, a bounded girl about 12 years old with wavy green hair and dark green eyes was happily carried by a group of bandits. A gold crown with a gem in the center was on her head, dressed in a white and pink dress. I told you this was an easy gig, one of them exclaimed. Bribe one of her servants, and we get ourselves a real brat. Imagine how much the slave market is going to pay for her. Forget the market. We can train her ourselves, one of them said, looking at the poor girl. We can sell it and play with it as long as we want. The poor girl began to cry when some men began to think that it was a good idea. Suddenly, there was a cold chill in the air, and the shadows began to move unnaturally. What's going on? One asked them as they drew their swords and weapons. People like you disgust me, a voice echoed through the forest as the shadows slithered toward them. Shadow grace, black vortex. Shadows began to swirl and the bandits found themselves sinking into darkness. They screamed and attacked the shadows, but nothing. Only the girl was left alone as she watched her kidnappers disappear into the shadows. Once they were gone, Fox appeared behind the tree as the shadows returned to normal, as if tamed by his mere presence. That was a waste of time, Kurama said from Fox's head before looking at the girl. But at least we saved her. Okay, Fox said in a soft tone as she laced her finger with chakra, using it to cut the rope. I won't hurt you. You're safe now. The girl looked at him with shocked eyes before starting to cry. Without warning, she lunged at Fox, wrapping her small arms around her waist. Fox blinked behind her headband before petting the poor girl. Come on, she said in a soft tone as he carried her into her arms. We're going to take you back home. Judging by her clothes and that crown on her head, she is the king's daughter, Karama said. Then let's go to the palace, Fox said before they disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Inside the castle, it was chaos, servants were frantic as they searched for the missing princess, healers moved wildly as they tried to save the queen's life, the king sat on his throne, unable to think with concern, and a man with curly hair and a long nose dressed white armor barking orders at the soldiers. Find the majesty of her, he barked angrily. If the princess is not found by the end of the hour, everyone will be punished. Excuse me, said a voice behind him. But is this the girl you're looking for? Surprised, the man and everyone turned to see Fox carrying the princess with Kurama, who raised a paw. Hisui-chan. The king, a short man with curly blonde hair and a mustache, dressed in royal robes, exclaimed as he ran towards Fox, the crown falling from his head. You're safe, Kabo. Father. Hisui exclaimed as he jumped from Fox's arm to his father's. He was so scared. Fox watched the scene and smiled behind his mask. He then saw the man in white armor walk toward him and bowed. Thank you, sir, he said in a grateful tone. Are you in charge of security? Fox asked. Yes, I am Arcadios, chief of the Knights of the Cherry Blossoms, the man introduced himself. Can I ask your name? Fox of Fairy Tale and this is Kurama. Fox and Kurama introduced themselves. If he is in charge, he may want this person. His shadow suddenly moved and a person appeared. Arcadius's eyes widened when he saw that it was one of the new servants. He was in cahoots with the bandits who kidnapped the girl, Fox explained as the shadow spat at the unconscious servant. One of them said something about bribery. That bastard, Arcadios said in a threatening tone. Take it away. Sir, do you think he poisoned the queen? Asked one of the soldiers. Poison? Fox thought as he turned to them. Damn it, poisoning the queen as a distraction to kidnap the princess. Arcadios cursed. Excuse me, Arcadios-san, Fox said, drawing his attention. But would you allow me to look at the queen? I can be of help. See, can you really help, Kabo? The king asked as he held his daughter tightly. I'll see if I can, Fox replied simply. Okay, follow me, Arcadios said as he led the way to the royal chambers. Fox found himself in an amazing room, but he focused on the king-size bed with red blankets and fluffy pillows. On the bed was a pale woman who looked like Hisui, with purple bags under his eyes, gasping for breath. Can you save my mother? Hisui asked with teary eyes. Fox didn't reply, he just raised his hands, making it glow. They all stared at him with wide eyes as he ran his glowing hands over the queen, before stopping at her chest. It's a simple poison meant to stop the heart, Fox said as he took out a scroll from her bag. He unfolded it and cut his finger with a kunai. Another hour later, she would be dead. Luckily, I have an antidote. In a cloud of smoke, potion bottles carefully appeared in a row. Fox hummed before reaching for a vial of pink liquid. He opened it before gently lifting the queen's head, and pouring the liquid into her mouth. She drank it weakly. Fox then gently lowered his head back to the pillow before resealing all the vials. A minute later, the purple bags disappeared from his eyes, his skin grew less pale, and his breathing steadied. A doctor quickly began to check on her before turning to the king with a shocked look. She is fine, exclaimed the doctor. The king and Hisui began to cry with joy as everyone else cheered. Fox just watched them as Kurama's ears twitched in annoyance. They're as loud as all those idiots back home, Kurama said as he covered his ears. Let's go home now. Before Fox could answer, the king suddenly appeared, a grateful smile on his face as he wiped away his tears. Thank you Fox-san Kabo, he cried as everyone calmed down. You saved my daughter and my wife. How can I repay you, Kabo? Please, there's no need, Fox said, holding up his hands. He was just doing the right thing. But still, is there anything we can do for you? The king asked as Hisui suddenly hugged him again. She looked at him with teary eyes. She may not be able to see it, but she could feel her cub's eyes watching him. Well, could you keep my involvement here a secret? Fox asked, surprising everyone. I'd rather my name wasn't known to potential enemies. Well, if that is your wish, the king said with a nod. This incident will only be upheld by everyone in this room, I swear, Fox-san. Thank you, Fox said with a respectful bow. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must return to my guild. Fox-sama, Hisui said as she stopped hugging him and removed a silver bracelet from her wrist. Please accept this as a thank you. Fox was about to refuse, but Hisui was giving him the puppy dog eyes again. Sighing mentally, he accepted the bracelet and placed it on his left wrist. Thank you, Hisui Haim, he said, making the girl blush. He bowed to them before he and Kurama disappeared into the shadows. Fox of Fairy Tale, Arcadios said as he looked at the place where Fox was standing. I didn't know Fairy Tale had such an amazing wizard. That boy would make a good king, Kabo, the king said with an approving nod. Fox-sama, Hisui said with a blush on his face. The next day, are you really keeping that bracelet? Kurama asked as they rode the train back to Magnolia. It was a gift from a princess, it would be rude of me not to wear it, said Fox as he looked at the silver bracelet with attached jades. Well, at least we have a lot of jewels to deliver to those bandits, Kurama said with a nod. Oh, we're here, Fox said as the train pulled to a stop. I want some ramen, Kurama said as he jumped on Fox's head. Let's get that troublesome woman to do something. Don't call her that if you want to ask her for something, Fox said as he smacked Kurama's head, causing him to scream. After walking through the city, Fox and Kurama returned to their usual table, ignoring the noises their guildmates were making. He was about to open a bottle of sake when he felt someone walking toward him. Do you need anything, Mirajane-san? He asked as he looked at the white-haired girl. Anyo, I was wondering if she could talk to you, Mirajane said, squirming shyly. Fox seemed confused by that, sensing how nervous he was. She is one of the most nervous people. When she talks to him, her heart rate would increase and her blood would rush to her face. She sometimes worries about her health. He mentally shrugged and stood up, pulling the other chair toward Mirajane. He blushed and sat up, smiling broadly. Fox ignored all the jealous looks from the boys who liked Mirajane. So what do you want to talk about, Mira-san? Fox asked. Mirajane smiled and just took a deep breath. In the meantime, give me that book, you little bum, exclaimed an egg-shaped man with a wig and curly mustache dressed in an expensive suit as he grabbed Lucy's arm and twisted it onto her back. Lucy cried out in pain, but she struggled as she held out a book titled Daybreak. That book is paid for by me, so the secrets within its pages are mine. This book does not belong to you. Lucy exclaimed as she struggled to free herself. Her eyes widened suddenly as she remembered Fox's lesson. Retrospective scene. It's been almost a month since Lucy accepted Fox's training, and she couldn't believe how much she had improved. Her weights no longer bothered her, and when they were gone, she felt like a feather. All that hellish training was showing results. But there was still a problem, her hand-to-hand combat was still weak. She and Levi managed to translate the scroll, and she's been studying it, but her punches didn't seem to affect Karama, who just looked confused as she kept hitting the same points on her body. Fox seemed to have noticed as well as she kept hitting those parts as hard as she could. Stop, she said, making them both look at him as he walked towards them. Lucy-san, it seems that you are fighting differently. Oh, you noticed, Lucy said with a small smile. Well, I was studying the scroll you gave me and I thought it might work against Kurama. Levi-san already translated it? Fox said in an impressed tone. She did it faster than he thought. I guess it's time for the next step in your training. Hey, Lucy said, bowing her head. What do you remember about the scroll? Fox asked. Well, the fighting style is called Gentle Fist, and it uses chakra, she said, remembering what she read. She was confused about what chakra is, she had never heard of it before. Use chakra to neutralize the various chakra points along the way. Excellent, Fox said approvingly. Unfortunately, you can't use chakra. Then? Lucy exclaimed in horror. Then why did you give me this scroll? Levi-chan and I wasted all the time for nothing. Calm down, you dumb blonde, Kurama said, causing Lucy to glare at him. Lucy-san, do you know what chakra is? Fox asked, and she shook her head. Chakra is the combination of physical and spiritual energies. It is the life force of everyone I used to live in. If I use too much, I will die. Then? Lucy said, surprised. So why are you using it? That's how I was trained, Fox explained calmly. Like how you were trained using magic. Magic? Lucy asked. You see, chakra and magic are very similar, Fox said as he took out a blank piece of paper and the paintbrush from his. Lucy watched as he drew the shape of a body with small circles and connecting lines on the body. Just like Kurama and I have a chakra path, you and everyone else have a magical path. Wow, Lucy said as she looked at her hands as if she was trying to see the way. But what does that have to do with Gentle Fist? You can fully utilize Gentle Fist if you add magic to your punches, Fox explained. You see, the purpose of Gentle Fist is to damage the enemy from the inside. For example, if I hit an enemy right here, he pointed to where the heart is. I can reduce the flow of magic, weakening it. Amazing, Lucy said before looking at Fox. Can you show me? Sure, Fox said before turning to Kurama, who paled. Come here, Kurama. Hell no. Kurama exclaimed as he walked away from the two. Get away from me, you sadistic asshole. Fox simply smiled behind his mask before disappearing in a blur, surprising Lucy. Suddenly, there was a howl of pain, causing Lucy to look at Kurama, who was clutching her right arm, tears of pain appearing in her eyes as she looked at Fox, whose index finger was covered in what looks like blue fire. You see it? Fox asked as he turned to Lucy in confusion. I hit Kurama's chakra point on her arm, rendering it useless. But how? Lucy asked. Fox said, thinking of an example. Imagine I was trying to block a flowing river. I used a large rock to prevent it from flowing. My chakra acts like the rock, blocking the path. Great, Lucy said with starry eyes. Is this how you were trained, Fox-kun? No, I was trained differently, Fox answered. But I knew some people who used Gentle Fist, so I have some knowledge of it. But wait, how can Kurama use chakra? Lucy asked, looking at the boy as he rubbed his arm, trying to get the feeling back. When he hatched, his magical reserves were dangerously low, Fox replied, surprising Lucy. To save him, I had to transfer some of my chakras into his body. Now, he's a chakra user, just like me. She then clapped her hands, as if ending the conversation. Now then, let's focus on you using your magic, said Fox. Flashback end. Just like Fox-kun taught me, Lucy said as she looked at his free arm. Attention. Suddenly, a faint white aura covered her fingers. Faster than the eye could see, she hits the Eggman on her wrist, causing her to scream in pain, freeing Lucy. Ugly bitch, she exclaimed in anger, holding her wrist. My wrist. I can't feel my wrist. Just his wrist? Lucy said, frowning a little. When Fox did, all he needed was one finger to paralyze Kurama's entire arm. I need to train harder. Give it up, fat duke. Lucy exclaimed as she took out one of the keys from her. Things have changed. If you give up, I might forgive you. A celestial spirit mage, huh? The Duke laughed. You're a fan of great literature, yet you misuse that phase. Things only change if I'm at a disadvantage. But you can't defeat my diving magic. You'll be out of luck next time. He then dove to the ground as if it were water. Lucy was on high alert as she did the basic gentle fist pose. You know, Kemuzalan surprised me. The Duke's voice echoed in the room. To think that a man who was praised as a great writer would create so much garbage. This is not garbage, Lucy exclaimed, hugging the book. This is his best work. But he only wrote it because you threatened him. Threatened? Happy whispered as he flew around the room, watching Lucy as she dodged the Duke's attacks. But that is not what Kemuzalan wanted to write in this book, the truth is something else. Lucy continued as she picked up the book. Come on, you fat weirdo. Take the bait. What is? Duke exclaimed angrily when Lucy simply stuck her tongue out. What is the secret? I will not give you this book. Lucy exclaimed as she put the book on her belt. You have no right to possess it. Lucy. Happy said as Lucy struck an unfamiliar pose. You might want to call one of your spirits since you're a bit weak. You're a bit weak, Lucy said annoyed. No, the Duke exclaimed as he panicked. If those books contain all of my illegal activity, and if the Magic Council finds out, I'll be broke. He suddenly pulled out a golden key, surprising both the girl and the cat. Open the door of the Virgin, Virgo. No way, Lucy exclaimed in shock when a gorilla-looking woman appeared out of nowhere. She is a heavenly spirit. Natsu? Happy exclaimed with wide eyes. Blinking, Lucy looked over and saw Natsu holding the maid's shirt. The Duke was surprised that Natsu suddenly fire-kicked her mage in the head, sending her to the ground. He didn't see Lucy running ahead of him at a terrifying speed. Her palm was covered in a white aura as she pushed her palm towards her chest. Shote, she exclaimed as she punched him in the chest of hers. Her eyes bulged out of her head as blood spurted out of her mouth. Take that, weirdo. Wow. Happy exclaimed in shock. That was so amazing, seeing how fragile and weak you are. What was that? Lucy exclaimed as she chased after Happy, who flew away from her. That was awesome, Lucy. Natsu exclaimed. I didn't know you were so strong. Fight me. No way. Fairy Tail Guild. Behind his headband, Fox's eyes darted around. Almost 5 hours have passed since Mirajane asked to speak to him. The white-haired beauty kept talking about the guild and all the members barely taking a breath. He admitted that it was impressive for the first hour, but after that, it got tedious. Kurama was sleeping on his head. After 30 minutes he stopped listening. Fox would have fallen asleep too, but he didn't want to be rude. And because Mirajane would sometimes ask him questions to see if he was listening, and there was a hint of murderous intent behind his cute pout. As expected of the former fairy tale demon. Thanks for the conversation, Fox-san, Mirajane said after talking about Wakaba being inconsiderate of his guildmates, smiling at him. Sorry if I bored you out of your mind. It's okay, Mirajane-san, Fox said as he shook his head. The conversation was informative. Well, I hope we can talk again, if you don't mind, Mirajane said in a hopeful tone. Originally, she wanted to talk about him, to finally get to him, but she got nervous, and when she was nervous, all she could do was talk about things she knew. But still, despite not knowing about Fox, she at least managed to get more than one sentence out of his mouth. Fox just nodded, showing that he didn't care. Mirajane had a big smile that just lit up the entire guild. She then walked briskly into the kitchen, probably to do her maid duty for her. Man, that was a long conversation, Kurama said when he woke up, looking into his eyes. To think that she can talk for so long. It was refreshing to hear her speak at all, Fox said, recalling how the woman barely gets a sentence out of her mouth when she confronts him. And I learned a lot about each other, so it was a win-win. Maybe she wouldn't be so nervous if you weren't dressed like that, Kurama said. She wears clothes like a normal person. I'm not normal, Fox said to Kurama. Suddenly, 2 bowls of steaming ramen appeared in front of them. Surprised, Fox looked over and saw a smiling Mirajane, the tray behind her. This is just a thank you for the chat, she said with a slight tinge to her cheeks. Thanks, but you didn't need to, Fox said before stopping when Mirajane pressed her fingers against her lips. Her eyes widened as it was the first time in a long time that a woman had touched him. None of that, Fox-san, she said with a smirk. This is my way of saying thank you. Besides, Karama-san is enjoying it. Fox turned and saw his furry companion eating her ramen with relish. He was sweating before looking at Mirajane, still looking at him with that cute pout on her face. Thank you, Mirajane-san, Fox said as he picked up his chopsticks, turning back to his food. Then his hand slowly went to his face mask. Everyone suddenly became depressed as they looked at him with anticipation. Sweat rolled off his head as his eyes focused on him until they were bloodshot. Mirajane stood there, swallowing nervously when Fox's fingers touched his mask. He lightly grabs the cloth and was about to pull it off. We're back, the door burst open, causing many of them to jump in shock as they turned towards the door, seeing Natsu, Happy, and Lucy walking into the guild. Their eyes widened as they realized what they were missing. They turned so quickly that their necks nearly broke. They then saw Fox taking her hand off his mask, with the bowl of ramen empty. It was very delicious, Mirajane-san, thanks again, he said as he put down his chopsticks. So fast. Everyone exclaimed, some had their eyes popping out of their heads. Stupid coals for the brain. Gray exclaimed as he threw his chair at Natsu, sending him flying. Look what you did. What was that for, stripper? Natsu exclaimed as fire erupted from his mouth, attacking Gray. Lucy sighed as the two's fight caused another fight in the guild. She looked at him before smiling slightly. She looked around the guild and saw Fox and Kurama at her usual table. She walked towards them, deftly dodging the chairs, tables, and bottles thrown around. Fox-kun. Kurama, she happily greeted. Greetings, Lucy-san, Fox said as Kurama raised his paw. Are you done with your mission? Yep, she said cheerfully. Though that happiness died when Fox formed a terrifyingly familiar hand sign. Fine, she said as her wrists and ankles glowed. Lucy felt heavier than last time, on all fours. What was that for? She exclaimed as she struggled to get up. Hey, they feel heavier. You were getting used to your current weights that I have to make them heavier, Fox explained as he pulled out a chair for Lucy, which she took. When you're not on a mission, you have to keep those weights. But I'll turn them off when you're on a mission. Oh, is that why you disabled them? She asked, remembering that the day before they left, Fox deactivated those seals. During a mission, you have to be fully prepared for everything, Fox said. On a mission, you always have to expect the unexpected, or else it'll hurt you. Lucy hummed as she thought about it. She was shocked when the Duke turned out to be a heavenly spirit mage. Fortunately, she was more surprised when Natsu appeared with her from the celestial spirit world. Well, I'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m., she said as she was about to stand up. Actually, Lucy said, causing him to stop and turn back to her. I was wondering if I could talk to you about the mission. Fox blinked before turning to Kurama, who shrugged and sat on her head, closing his eyes again. Seeing no harm in it, Fox simply nodded and sat back down, causing the girl to smile before taking a deep breath. Later. Fox learned something today. She learned that women can talk for hours on end. Her eye twitched again as Lucy told her about her fight with the Duke, a proud smile on her face. She spent the last 3 hours on the mission, which surprised Fox since he could sum up the entire story in 5 minutes. In a mission, all that matters is the objective, the possible enemies, and the results. But Lucy seemed to tell every detail, from her buying a maid's outfit, to being rejected because the Duke preferred deformed girls, to reading the book, etc. She sighed mentally, but feeling her smiling face, she guessed it wasn't that bad. And then we went home without getting paid, Lucy finished with a frown. To tell the truth, the ones who applied for the mission weren't really rich, they were just pretending to be, so she didn't care. But still, all that hard work and nothing. So, how do you think I do? She was nervously waiting for her opinion. Honestly, she wanted her opinion more than others, after all, she was strong because of him. It was fitting, she said, causing Lucy's face to hit the table, not expecting that. What do you mean proper? Lucy exclaimed. I kicked that weird's ass on my own. And that's why it's suitable, Fox said, making Lucy look confused. You did well, beating the Duke on your own, and that means you're getting better. But all the strongest mages are in teams. But Fox-kun, you always do missions on your own, said Lucy, making Fox laugh a little. He laughed again. I do not think so. This must be a dream. Lucy was sweaty as she looked at the nosy wizards. I have a partner, Fox said as she petted Karama, making the orange cat purr. Lucy was surprised to see the narcotic cat like that. I trust Kurama with my life during a mission, and he trusts me. Lucy smiled slightly at the scene. She felt good to see the two of them be like this. She shows that Fox wasn't as cold as people thought he was. That's why you'll start training with your spirit tomorrow, Fox said, causing Lucy to smile widely. Good. Lucy clapped her hands, she can finally show what she was made of. Suddenly, a small box was in front of her. Blinking, she looked at Fox. What is this? I was going to give it to you tomorrow, Fox said. But think of it as a reward for completing your mission. Lucy picked up the package and opened it. Her eyes widened when she saw that it was a pair of pink elongated glasses with slightly oversized frames with little wings on the rim with a heart-shaped ornament. Lucy squealed happily as she hugged the glasses to her chest, jumping up and down like an excited child, drawing everyone's attention. Fox nodded, feeling her euphoria. I'm glad you like it, Ga, he told him before being interrupted when Lucy suddenly hugged him, pressing her breasts to her face. They both fell to the ground as Lucy tightened her hold, not realizing that she was suffocating. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she exclaimed as Fox flailed her arms, trying to break free of her. They all watched as he slowly stopped moving, his fingers trembling. What a way to go, most of the male wizards thought, blood dripping from their noses. Hello, blonde. Karama called, drawing Lucy's attention. Your big breasts are suffocating him. She blinked before looking down. Sure enough, Fox was writhing on the ground, losing consciousness. She stood up quickly, allowing him to breathe. I am so sorry, she exclaimed, bowing repeatedly as Fox shakily stood up. She blinked at something, her mask was drenched in red liquid. She blinked before smiling slyly. Fox-kun, you enjoyed it, didn't you? She simply turned her head while using a seal to cleanse her mask. Lucy simply smiled, pride blooming in her chest. She was happy to get such a reaction, especially from someone like Fox. Anyway, she said, her mask wiping blood from her nose. I'm glad you like them. Like them? I love them, she said with a big smile. But how did you know? Whenever you invite me over, the magazines you read are always rigged over this pair of Gale Force reading glasses, Fox explained. So, I asked some people to get me one of these. But these are expensive, Lucy exclaimed as she has been saving up to buy this pair. I can't accept them. You worked hard, Lucy-san, Fox said. You deserve it. Lucy blushed at that, feeling happy. And I made some modifications to them, she explained further, causing Lucy to look at them. I added some sigils to make sure they react to your unique magical signature and are unbreakable. I also added another bonus feature. Put them on and work some magic on yourself. Blinking, Lucy put on her glasses and did as she said. Her eyes widened as everything grew darker. Then she saw what looked like veins connected by glowing dots on everyone's bodies. Her eyes widened even more as she realized that these are magical paths that Fox taught her. She also noted that while everyone's paths were white, Fox and Kurama's were blue with a hint of red. Impressive, she said as she looked around her, seeing that some magical reserves were larger than others. This is great. Since you've almost mastered the basics of the gentle fist, this will help you fully utilize the style, Fox explained as Lucy took off her glasses. Although you'll tire quickly if you wear those glasses too much, use them when necessary. Thank you, Fox-kun, she said with a smile. As I said, you earned them, Fox said, with a small smile behind her mask. Lucy blushed again before seeing something. She suddenly smiled widely as she saw her new friends. Hey, Levy-chan, she exclaimed, drawing the blue girl's attention. She smiled seeing Lucy, but she got flustered when she saw Fox. Levy took a deep breath to calm herself. She told herself that she would be friends with Fox, and she will. With a smile and a determined look, she, Jet, and Droy walked toward them. Hello Lucy-chan, she happily saluted before turning to Fox and Karama. Hello, Fox-san, Karama-san. Meet, Karama said as she waved lazily. Hello, Levy-san, Jet-san, Planthead-san, Fox greeted politely. Good to see you. The duo seemed surprised by her greeting, while Droy seemed depressed. Planthead, she murmured as she fingered her hairdo. Jet can't help but laugh at her friend's situation as the two girls laugh. How was the mission, Lucy-chan? Levy asked, turning to the blonde. It was great, Lucy said with a smile. But we don't accept the reward money. Really? Levy said, surprised. But that was a great reward. Well, my teammate is a jerk, Lucy said before smiling a bit. But it just didn't feel right, taking the reward after learning the truth. Levy looked at his friend before nodding, understanding a bit. So how was the mission? Levy asked and Lucy's eyes lit up as she told her friend about her mission, offering them a seat. This time she kept it short, at least 20 minutes. Wow, Levy said with wonder in his eyes once Lucy finished the story. You're amazing, Lucy-chan. I didn't. Heavenly spirit mages are so strong. Well, it wouldn't be strong if it wasn't for Fox-kun, Lucy said sheepishly as she pointed at Fox who was drinking sake. He taught me to fight. But I don't get it, Droy said as he looked at Fox in disbelief. No offense Fox, but you're a C-class wizard. How did you make Lucy so strong? Droy, Levy said as he nudged the guy before turning to Fox. Sorry about that. But I do agree with him, said Jet, also confused. He grunted when Levy nudged him as well. Ow. Sorry. He's fine, Fox said as he shook his hand, not really insulted. By the way, Fox-san, Levy said as she turned to him. Lucy-chan told me that you lent her an amazing book. Fox turned to look at Lucy, who gave a shy giggle before turning to Levy, who was looking at him hopefully. Well, I didn't really tell him to keep it a secret, she thought before nodding at Levy. Yes, I lent him my book. Well, Lucy-chan told me it was a really great book, Levy said nervously as he clenched his fingers. And I was wondering if you could let me borrow it, please. Sweaty Fox as he could feel Levy looking at him with adorable puppy dog eyes, pouting cutely. Once again, he could feel his will weakening against the dangerous attack. You can, he relented, causing Levy to grab his hand suddenly, shaking it. Thank you Fox-san, she exclaimed happily. Lucy smiled as her two friends slowly walked away. She then walked over to Levy. Look, Levy-chan, Lucy said as she went to pat the girl on the back. I told you that Fox-kun is a good. He stopped when he accidentally pushed Levy into Fox, unaware of his own strength. The two fell to the ground, exploding dust. Levy-chan, Lucy, Jet, and Droy exclaimed in concern as the dust settled. Everyone's eyes suddenly widened at the scene in front of them. Levy was straddling Fox's waist as Fox's hands rested on her hips. Levy's lips pressed firmly to Fox's mask, her eyes wide with surprise. Wow, she exclaimed as she got up quickly and began to bow apologetically. I am so sorry. Fox didn't say anything as he lay there, completely shocked. He felt a sense of déjà vu, remembering that something like this happened years ago. Bawahahahahaha. Kurama laughed as he fell to the ground, holding his stomach. Ha ha ha, Makarov laughed, sitting at the bar. Fox, I didn't know you were such a cunning dog. Fox! Exclaimed two angry voices, drawing his attention. He sat up and saw Jet and Droy looking at him with anger and jealousy. How dare you take advantage of Levy-chan? Jet exclaimed. Yes. Droy agreed, cracking his knuckles. We're going to teach you a lesson. Yes, it was really familiar. Kurama, he called out to him, drawing the attention of his partner. Escape plan, Gamma Alpha 7. Kurama nodded before taking something out of his small bag. He caught a fish 3 times his size. Capture, he exclaimed as he tossed the fish to Jet and Droy, who caught it without thinking. Hello, Happy. These guys have a big fish and they don't want to share. Roar, he exclaimed a voice, causing them both to look up and see Happy flying towards them, claws sharp and a crazy gleam in his eyes as drool spilled from her mouth. Jet and Dre tried to release the fish, but it was stuck to their hands. They screamed as Happy hit them, causing a dust cloud of pain and tangled limbs. Give me that fish. Happy, stop. Not the face, please. Most of them laughed at the funny scene, not realizing that Fox and Kurama had disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves. Makarov simply smiled, lighting his pipe. Looks like you're starting to open up, Naruto, he muttered to himself before looking at the guild at him. Lucy frowned a bit as she looked at Levy blushing, who seemed to be in a daze as she touched her lips. Lucy wasn't the only one frowning. Mirajane felt jealous, an angry aura covered her form with a lifeless smile on her face. Even though it was an accident and her mask covered her lips, it was still a kiss. Kana felt the same way as she scowled and began to drown out her jealousy with a few more barrels of alcohol. This could be interesting, Makarov said calmly. End chapter. Chapter 5. You old pervert, Fox muttered as he gazed out the train window, watching the valleys and hills go by. It bothers me for that obscenity. Well, it's your fault for posting that series, Kurama said, lying on top of his head. I was kidding about that, Fox said as he recalled giving the old man the orange-covered book. The old man cried with joy as he read, and Fox said, sarcastically, that he shares the joy with other perverts. He didn't think the old man would take him seriously and made it Fox's mission to publish the rest of Jiraiya's books. He wondered when and how the perverted old sage put those obscenity-filled parchments in his pocket and monkey pockets. Even drafts of him were there. He wondered if Jiraiya tried to corrupt him into a pervert. He sighed before standing up. He felt that nature was calling him, so he left his room. In another train car, Lucy sighed as she was part of a team of the strongest mage from Natsu, Happy, Gray, and Fairy Tail, Titania Urza Scarlet, a beautiful woman with red hair and brown eyes, dressed in a blue skirt and custom Heart Cruise armor, black boots, and silver diamond-shaped earrings. She met her yesterday, amazed that she wore a decorated monster horn 10 times her size with ease when she entered the guild, and even more amazed when everyone, even Natsu, behaved and listened as she scolded the entire guild. But the shock did not stop. Everyone dropped their mouths when Urza asked for Gray and Natsu's help, causing Mira to call them the strongest team. The only reason she came was that Mira asked her to. And after learning about her mission, she was worried. Apparently, a dark guild called Eisenwald got sealed magic called Lullaby, and it was his job to stop them and get Lullaby. And so here she is, her sitting next to Gray and Happy as Natsu was resting on Urza's lap, having been beaten to the guts to knock him out, heading to a town called Onabus. When she looked up, she was surprised to see a familiar person. Fox-kun? She said in surprise, causing Gray, Urza, and Happy to look up as well. Fox heard her and turned to her. She stopped and bowed in greeting. Hello, Lucy-san, Gray-san, and Happy-san, he said before turning to Urza. And Urza-san, I didn't know you were back. Greetings, Fox-san, Urza said with a wink at the mysterious wizard of hers. Are you here on a mission? More like an errand for the old man, Fox said, causing Urza to nod. Are you on a mission? Yes, Urza said as she pointed to the others. I've asked Natsu and Gray for help, and Lucy volunteered. I heard she did amazingly well against a female gorilla from her last mission. Lucy was sweating from the exaggerated rumor about her last mission with Natsu. She suddenly saw the seals on her wrists light up at her, shocking her. She suddenly felt lighter. She turned to Fox, who lowered his hand. She shot him a grateful look before moving a little. She patted the one sitting next to her, causing him to nod and sit down. They didn't see Urza's eyebrow arching from the glare and her hand sign. It must be a serious mission if he asks for help, Fox commented to Urza. Usually you do things on your own. And because everyone is scared of you, Karama said from Fox's head. These two were probably too scared to say no. The mission is to take down a dark guild, Lucy said quickly, seeing a mark on Urza's head. A dark guild? Fox said as he turned to Urza, who nodded. The redhead then explained the mission to Fox, which involves Eisenwald, sealed magic called Lullaby, and Anabu's town. When she finished, Fox was humming, thinking of something. Do you want my help, Urza-san? Gray, Happy, and Urza were surprised that he offered while Lucy looked relieved. She could breathe easy knowing that Fox was there. Why are you offering, Fox-san? Urza asked, hoping she didn't sound rude. Facing a dark guild could be dangerous, Fox replied. You and everyone are strong, but you can't be too careful against them. You are my comrades, I wish to help you. Lucy blushed and smiled happily when she said that. Urza and Gray looked at him before smiling too. Thank you, Fox-san, Urza said. But I will decline. We are enough for this mission. Very well, Fox said before standing up and bowing. I wish you all luck on your mission. He then walked to the bathroom, getting out of the cart. Lucy watched him go before looking at Urza. Why didn't you accept his offer? She asked, now feeling nervous. You could really help us on this mission. Look, Fox-san is one of our most professional wizards, which is impressive given his age, Urza said as she looked down. But, this mission is beyond him. Why? Lucy asked with a frown. Because he'll just slow us down, Gray said, causing Lucy to frown. Fox is a C-class wizard, and we will spend all our time worrying about him. But Fox-kun isn't going to slow us down. Lucy exclaimed hotly. I've been trying to win against him when we're training. Her three companions looked at her in surprise as she slowly registered what she said. A second later, she closed her mouth with both hands, but it was already too late. Have you been training with him? Gray exclaimed in shock. He heard the rumors that Fox was training the new girl, but he thought they were just rumors. So he really is training you? No, she said limping, hoping they would believe her. Lucy. Urza said in a threatening manner, her aura flowing from her body. Lucy paled and sweated as Gray and Happy walked away from her. Please explain. Well, Lucy said with a defeated sigh. Fox-kun has been training me for months. He had me training with Karama and I haven't beaten him even once, even with my heavenly spirits. Gray and Happy looked at him before laughing, tears welling up in his eyes. Lucy growled at them, her face red with anger and humiliation. You've been losing to Kurama. Gray exclaimed through laughter. That means you're weaker than me. Happy exclaimed. Shut up. Lucy exclaimed. Kurama was trained by Fox-kun, that's why he's strong. You say that Kurama has been hitting you, even with your spirits? Urza said, making the laughter stopped. Lucy nodded. Even with your golden keys, couldn't you beat him? Yes, Lucy said with a nod. That's why I know Fox-kun is strong. He just doesn't want to show it. The train stopped suddenly, and the four of them began to walk away, forgetting a certain pink-haired flamethrower. Urza was silently thinking about what Lucy said. Was Fox really that strong? She really didn't know. In fact, no one knows much about Fox. Only Master knew a little about Fox. If he was really strong, why was he hiding his strength from him? This is giving me a headache, Gray said, rubbing his head. I can't imagine Fox being that strong. He's so weird. Well, Mira-san and Lisana-san think that Fox-kun is strong, said Lucy. Huh, I always thought Mirajane was kidding, Gray said as he thought about it. Every time one of her members said that Fox wasn't strong, she told them otherwise. Well, Fox is good at dodging, Happy added as she walked alongside Lucy. Huh, now that you say that, Gray said, remembering that through the many guild fights they had, he could remember Fox calmly walking through the chaos, not getting hit once. We really don't know much about Fox-san, Urza said, remembering how everyone acted around Fox, feeling awkward and nervous. We don't know what he looks like, what his real name is, what magic he used. Only Master Makarov knows about him, and he trusts Fox, so we should trust him too. Lucy and Gray saw the resolution in his eyes, making them smile. Despite being so antisocial, Fox was still a member of Fairy Tail. Besides, he called us his comrades, Gray said with a smile. So, he's our partner too. Yes, Lucy said as Urza nodded, both of them smiling. Guys. Happy said concerned as she looked around her. I think we forgot about one of our comrades. They all stopped before their eyes opened and looked at the moving train. Natsu. Back on the train, Fox was walking back to his car from the bathroom, before he felt something. He and Kurama tensed as they walked in silence towards the car where Lucy and the others were. Ken laughed as he kicked Natsu to the ground. He was a lanky man who had familiar black hair styled in a spiky ponytail, dressed in black pants and a gray jacket with a white t-shirt. To think that fairy trash is so weak. Natsu didn't reply. He was busy trying not to throw up. Just as the man was about to kick him again, someone kicked him in the back, sending him crashing to the ground. Natsu weakly looked up and saw Fox, surprising him. You really need to fix this problem of yours, Natsu-san, Fox said as he picked Natsu up and walked towards the door. What are you doing? Natsu asked when Fox opened the door. Shut your mouth and keep your elbows in, Fox said before throwing Natsu off the train, causing him to scream, waving his arms wildly. Who are you? The man exclaimed before seeing the symbol on the headband. What? Another fairy trash? Ha! Looks like you assholes want your ass kicked. Are you from Eisenwald? Fox guessed when he sensed something dangerous in the man. Lucky, the man said with a smile. But as you know, I guess I have to kill you. He went to grab the dangerous object from his coat, and that was when Kurama charged from under him, startling the man. He took the item from the man's hand before flying back to Fox, handing the item over to him and landing on top of his head. Fox used his senses and felt that it was a flute, with a carved skull. He could feel that he reeked of dark magic. This must be Lullaby, and it feels unsealed, he said as he slid the item onto his cloak. I'm going to keep this here, for safety. Bastard, the man exclaimed as his shadow began to move. Give it back to me. Shadow Knuckle. He threw out his fist and many dark fists erupted from the ground and flew towards the two of them, only to suddenly disappear. What the hell, he said before feeling someone touch his shoulder. He spun around and his face was hit by what looked like a steel cannon. He flew to the other end, causing a hole. The man sat up slowly, rubbing his face. He looked over and saw Fox with his left fist raised. What the hell is your fist made of? Flesh, bone, muscle, blood, sinew, Fox answered as he walked towards the man. Now, will you tell me everything you know? He stopped when he felt something behind him. Acting quickly, he flew into the air, dodging a wisp of wind that tore through the car, blowing the roof off. Fox turned to see a tall man with silver hair pointing up and hanging down from his left face. He was wearing a ragged skirt with a black skirt over it, tied with a white sash, bandages on his arms, and black gloves and leather sandals. Wood. He also had tattoos on his chest and biceps, and some on his face. And resting on his shoulder was a sharp scythe. I was wondering why you're late, Kageyama, the man said as Kageyama paled in fear. To think that a fairy trash would stop you. Aragorn-san, Kageyama said in a fearful tone. Aragorn, the Grim Reaper of Eisenwald? Fox asked as the wind stirred his cloak. I am very honored that you have met me, said Aragorn with a smile. But, I'm sorry to say, I don't know who you are. And you never will, Fox said before turning quickly to Kageyama. Shadow Grace, Black Vortex. Kageyama cried out as he saw Fox's shadow suddenly stretch until he reached for it and began to sink into it. He tried to escape, use his own magic, but couldn't, to his surprise. Fox then quickly jumped to the side of the train as Karama clung to his back, jumping off the train. Aragorn cursed before swinging the scythe away from him, sending a cyclone towards Fox. Wings sprouted from Karama's back and flew away before the cyclone could hit them. Aragorn screamed as the train headed in the other direction. You know, you could have easily taken that bastard down, Karama said as he slowed him down a bit. I could, but those people on the train would get hurt if I fought him, Fox answered before feeling Urza and the others heading towards them at high speed. Fortunately, he placed some shadow clones that were evacuating people as soon as he felt the fighting. You see them? Yes, Kurama said before going downstairs. Lucy, Gray and Happy screamed as Urza drove the self-energy plug vehicle, with Natsu groaning on the ground. After Natsu met up with them, he told them what happened. Urza was angry at him for not listening to his mission, even though it was his fault, and she was worried about Fox. She suddenly looked up and saw Fox and Kurama flying towards them. He easily landed on the roof and grabbed a kunai. He sliced through the ceiling like butter, creating a hole that surprised them. Fox-kun, Lucy said in a happy tone. Are you okay? Keep following that train, Fox exclaimed through the wind as he climbed into the car. Aragorn is there. What? Urza exclaimed before speeding up the car. Did he fight Aragorn? And there wasn't a scratch on him. What happened? Gray asked as he looked at Fox. I was walking back to my seat when I saw Natsu getting kicked by an Eisenwald wizard, Fox said, causing Gray to laugh at Natsu, who growled angrily at him. And then Aragorn came and tried to kill me, but I managed to get away. I was able to get the lullaby too. Really, that's great. Lucy clapped her hands when Fox reached into her cloak. She raised her head when she couldn't grasp the lullaby. She looked at the pocket and saw a clean hole in it. When? Fox thought before remembering the cyclone. He probably cut his cloak without him noticing. Cunning bastard. Well, you did well against Aragorn, Urza said as they continued to drive. Fox turned to her, feeling her magic draining fast. He slipped her hand into her cloak and handed it to her. She seemed surprised as she looked at the black pill. What's this? Eat it, Fox said before popping the thing into her mouth and making her swallow it. What are you doing? Urza exclaimed angrily, only to stop when she felt her magic recover. What was that? It's an energy pill, Kurama explained. The Sepkar is draining you too much, so Fox gave you one to replenish your energy. You're going to need it. Thank you, Urza said before picking up speed. Now let's stop Aragorn. Where did you get that pill? Gray asked in a curious tone. I find it, Fox said. I didn't know I could do something like that, Gray commented. By the way, that lullaby thing gave me goosebumps, Karama said. How it see? Lucy asked. A flute with a three-eyed skull, Karama explained. What was that? Urza exclaimed with wide eyes. If that's lullaby, then this is bad. Why, what's wrong with the flute? Gray asked. That flute is a dangerous artifact, Fox explained calmly. It is said that his music can put anyone into a permanent sleep. No way, Lucy said as Gray and Happy looked shocked. A few minutes later, they arrived at the station. They quickly jumped out of the vehicle and entered the station, where many unconscious people were lying on the ground. Damn that bastard, Urza said as she looked at them. He's trying to use lullaby at the station. The loudspeakers will broadcast the music all over town. This is horrible, Lucy exclaimed. We have to stop him. Natsu exclaimed. Go ahead, Fox said, surprising them. I have something to do. Without warning, her shadow suddenly spat out at someone. It was an unconscious Kageyama. Hey, that's the guy who kicked me. Natsu exclaimed, causing Gray to laugh. Shut up. I'll ask you some questions regarding lullaby, Fox said as he handed Urza a piece of paper with a stamp on it. I'll contact you with that, so don't lose it. They all looked at the newspaper in confusion before they saw Fox pull out 2 green tubes and hand them to Kurama, who smiled as he removed the caps and placed them over Kageyama's nostrils, spraying on a pale green paste. Kageyama's eyes snapped out of his head as fire erupted from his mouth, screaming in pain. What was that? Lucy asked as Kageyama began to cough uncontrollably. Wasabi, Fox and Kurama said in unison as the cat jumped on Fox's head. Everyone sweated at that answer. What the hell? Kageyama exclaimed as he continued to cough before looking up. You bastard. Shadow Grace, Shadow Strangle, Fox said as his shadows advanced toward Kageyama like little snakes, wrapping around his legs, arms, and torso. What's that? Natsu asked surprised. So that's his magic? Controlling shadows? Gray commented. Come on, Kageyama-san, Fox said as he dragged the man towards a closet. I just want to ask a few questions. Let me go, trash. Kageyama exclaimed before walking into the closet. A few seconds later. Hey, what are you going to do with that? No, stop. Somebody help me. Help me. AAAGH. They all looked at the closet, which was full of cries of pain, begging for mercy. Let's go, Urza said, not shocked by what she had just witnessed. Fox is scary, Happy commented as they followed Urza. I feel sorry for you, Lucy, Gray said. Shut up, Lucy said, though she was sweating a little. What are you talking about? Natsu asked. Oh yeah, you were sleeping that time, Happy said. Fox is training Lucy. Wow, really? Natsu said, surprised. Is that why you can fight so well? Okay, yes. Awesome. I want to fight Fox. Natsu stated as he laughed. They then found themselves in a large room and saw many wizards who looked like thugs waiting for them. Look, it's the fairy trash. Look, 2 of them are beauties. Let's kill the other 2 and have some fun with the ladies. Good idea. Urza simply summoned a sword before charging. A group of Eisenwald wizards charged at her, her hands moving pervertedly. She then swung her sword at her, and the group went down easily, surprising Lucy and the Eisenwald mages. Natsu. Gray. Go find Aragorn, she exclaimed, drawing the attention of the other 2. Lucy, Happy and I will take care of this. What the 2 exclaimed. Do it, Urza exclaimed with a threatening look. Come on, Natsu-kun. Gray said with a forced smile. Yes, Natsu also said with a forced smile. The 2 run towards the stairs, punching anyone who gets in their way. Hey, are we really fighting all of them alone? Lucy exclaimed as Happy flew to safety. Hey, come back here. But I'm too small and cute to fight, Happy said. Good luck. Useless cat, Lucy exclaimed, before she did the gentle fist pose. We should have taken Karama with us. Requip, Urza exclaimed as the light covered her body. Suddenly, his clothes disappeared, causing the men to shout in excitement. His excitement died as he now wore silver armor consisting of a breastplate made up of feather-shaped plates that formed a flower, his biceps covered with metal strips, his arms covered with feather gauntlets, and a metal skirt shaped like wings. With winged boots, and on his back were metal wings. Flying behind her were 10 swords. Sky wheel armor, she declared as 10 swords floated behind her, which began to fly towards the screaming mages. Wait, I know who she is, one of them exclaimed in fear. She is Titania. She is so cool, Lucy exclaimed with starry eyes. This one looks weak, exclaimed a mage behind her as he went to attack her. Suddenly, she grabbed his arm and knocked him to the ground, knocking him unconscious. I may look cute, but I'm not weak, Lucy said as she took out a key. Well, it's time for her to show off. God, Lucy, don't go stealing Urza's spotlight, Happy said from the ceiling. Shut, Lucy exclaimed before holding the key up in front of her. Open the door of the crab, Cancer. In a flash of light, a shadowed tan man with crab-legged hair appeared, wearing a blue polo shirt and green pants, scissors in both hands. A crab, Happy exclaimed excitedly. You're easily turned on, Lucy commented with a drop of sweat. What do you need, Ebby? Cancer said as he twirled the scissors. Ebby, Happy exclaimed in shock before becoming depressed. Take him back, Lucy. We're going to lose. Easy, you, Lucy said before standing next to Cancer, surprising him. Well then, let's go get them, Cancer. Cancer looked at Lucy before smiling. I thought Taurus was joking when he said you were training, I guess not, Ebby. You have changed, Lucy-sama, Ebby. Well, I wanted to be someone they can trust, Lucy said with a smile. Now let's take care of these perverts. She and Cancer charged at the wizards, who ran towards her instead of facing Urza. Bring them. Rip her clothes off her. Grab her boobs. Lucy tried to stay calm as they yelled out other perverted ideas. With magic covering her hands, she attacks the offending mages, accurately hitting them in some of her magic spots, making them scream in pain as they held the injured parts. She helped Cancer let their guard down by giving them ridiculous hairstyles, giving her a chance. Soon enough, all of Eisenwald's wizards were on the ground, beaten and writhing on the ground. Urza reverted to her standard armor as Lucy remembered Cancer and thanked her. That was very impressive, Lucy-san, Urza said as he walked towards Lucy and Happy flew towards them. Maybe Fox-san would be strong if she could train you to be like that. Ah, you're embarrassing me, Urza-san, Lucy said in a sheepish manner. Are you going to train with me sometimes? Urza asked. Hell no, Lucy exclaimed. She may have gotten stronger, but there was no way she could train with Urza. Urza looked at herself. If it wasn't for Fox's pill, she'd be on her knees, magically exhausted. Let's go and help Natsu and Gray look for Aragorn, she said, turning to Lucy and Happy. Go find Natsu, I'll find Gray. Knowing those two, they parted ways. Yes, Happy exclaimed as he and Lucy ran off. Urza watched them go before the newspaper Fox gave her lit up. Urza-san, he said, making Urza jump in surprise. Can you hear? Fox-san? Urza said as she grabbed the paper, looking at it curiously. Urza-san, get the others out of there, Fox said, making Urza look confused. It's a trap. Grigor's real target is not this city. He's targeting the guild master meeting today. What? Urza exclaimed. If that was true, then the reason Aragorn led them here was to trap them. I told the others to split up. You're trying to get out of here before it's too late, Fox said. We'll go find the others. The light died from the symbols as Urza looked at her. He then started running for the exit as fast as he could. Meanwhile, Gray was running towards the group as fast as he could, his shirt gone. He fought one of Eisenwald's wizards, and after beating the guy, he taunted Gray by revealing his true mission. After that, he started running as fast as he could. There you go. A voice exclaimed, and Gray felt someone grab him by the back of his pants and drag him away. Here's, Gray exclaimed as he looked up and saw Karama. Karama. No time to argue, he exclaimed as he flew through the halls. Wait, you have to know about Aragorn's plan. We know, Karama said. That's why there's no time to argue. Gray looked at him and nodded, stopping his fight. Suddenly, he hit part of the decoration with his face. Ow. Look where you're flying to. There is no time, Kurama said, a twinkle in his eyes, suppressing a smile. Meanwhile, Natsu was running through the halls, kicking down doors and yelling at Aragorn to get out. Suddenly, he felt someone grab him by the back of his vest and start dragging him through the halls. Hey, let me go, you bastard. Natsu exclaimed as he waved his arms wildly. I'll kick your ass. Fox ignored him and used his senses to find Lucy and Happy. He then walked towards them and watched them walk away from his direction, asking for Natsu's name. Hey, do you hear something? Happy said as he looked at Lucy. Sounds like Natsu, Lucy said as they were about to turn around. Lucy suddenly got up when she felt someone wearing her bridal outfit, and Happy was grabbed by a tail by something orange and furry. Wow, she cried before seeing that it was Fox who was carrying them. Fox-kun? We have to get out of here, and quickly, Fox told him as he kept running. Lucy, once she cleared her head, could feel where Fox's hand was holding her. She screamed and started hitting his head, which had no effect. Let yourself go, you pervert, she cried when she could feel his hand squeezing his butt hard, to make sure he wouldn't fall. There's no time, Fox said simply. Grigor plans to use the lullaby on the guild masters. Lucy stopped slapping and looked at Fox, before pouting angrily at him. You're making excuses to be sorry, right? You pervert. You have a nice ass, Fox admitted, causing her to blush deeply. Let me go, you fat gorilla kappa. Natsu exclaimed, not stopping for a full minute. Oh, hello, Happy. Hello, Happy exclaimed as she looked at what was holding her tail. It was orange and fluffy. Is that a tail? Natsu said as she looked at Happy's tail and at the orange fluffy thing that seemed to be connected behind Fox's cape. Wow, I didn't know you had a tail, Fox. Do you have a tail? Lucy said surprised. No, I don't, Fox denied as he kept running. Here's. Kurama yelled as she saw them heading towards the stairs. Hurry, before we're stuck here, Fox exclaimed as he jumped down the stairs. He and Kurama led the others until they reached the outside. Damn it, we're too late. In front of them was a barrier of winds that prevented everything from entering and leaving. They were cheating. Suddenly they heard a growl and looked to see Urza with a bloodied and wounded fist. Urza, Natsu, Gray, and Lucy screamed as they all ran towards her. I'm sorry, Fox-san, Urza said as she remained stoic in pain. I didn't make it. Fox simply ignored that as he took out a scroll, drawing the attention of the others. He waved his hand and exclaimed Kai, which caused the scroll to release a cloud of smoke, surprising them. When the smoke cleared, they saw some bandages, disinfection, cotton balls, band-aids, everything you would find in a first aid kit. Give me your hand, she said in a soft tone as she dabbed some cotton balls with disinfectant. Urza looked at him before nodding and shaking his injured hand. He removed her damaged glove and cleaned her wounds. She winced at the stinging sensation, but she didn't move. Once her wounds were cleaned, he wrapped bandages around her arm tightly. Once she finished, Urza looked at her arm and clenched her fist to test the bandages. She looked at Fox and gave him a grateful nod as she closed the items back onto the parchment. I didn't know Fox was a healer, Gray commented as he looked at the scroll. What did you do with the scroll? Urza asked in a curious tone. She had never seen so much magic before. Seals, Fox replied before looking at the barricade. Now how do we stop this? Suddenly, Natsu was behind him and lifted her cloak, surprising everyone. Then they saw 3 orange foxtails, fluffy and bushy at the bottom of her spine. Wow, you have 3 tails. Natsu exclaimed, before finding her face firmly on the ground, a steaming lump on her head. Now, any ideas on how to get out of this? Fox asked, acting as if nothing had happened. She left fist smoking, making everyone sweat. Wait, Happy said as she pulled something out of her green sack. I remembered something I should have given Lucy. Do you remember that bouncer the Duke had? Yes, Lucy said. Why? She wanted me to give you this. Happy said as he showed them a gold key with the Virgo symbol on it. Ever since the Duke was arrested, she wanted to form a contract with you. We can use her to get out of here. Wow, that's a good idea. Lucy said surprised. I guess you can be useful sometimes. That's painful. Happy exclaimed as she handed him the key. How is she going to help a spirit? Gray asked. I remembered Virgo digging holes, said Lucy. We can tunnel to escape. Excellent, Urza said as he suddenly slammed Lucy's head into her chest, which was covered in hard armor. Oh, Lucy exclaimed as she rubbed her head. She then looked at the key and sighed. Open the door of the Virgin, Virgo. In a flash of light, a beautiful woman with pale purple hair and emotionless blue eyes appeared, dressed in a maid outfit, with chains on her wrists. Lucy, Happy, and Natsu, who was standing, looked at her in silence. Virgo? Lucy asked. Yes, how can I serve you? Virgo asked with a bow. Wow, you lost a lot of weight, Natsu commented. I don't think that's right, Lucy said with a drop of sweat. My appearance is based on my master's taste, Virgo explained. Oh yes, the strange Duke has strange taste in women, Happy commented. So Lucy must be a pervert since she has chains, Kurama said. Here's, Lucy exclaimed, looking at the cat. Then how can I serve you, madam? Virgo asked as he looked at Lucy. Don't call me that, Lucy said. How about ma'am? Nope. Princess? I guess she's fine, Lucy said with a nod. Is this really an important discussion? Fox asked, drawing her attention. Right, Lucy nodded, remembering why they needed her. Virgo, I need you to dig a tunnel to get out of here. Of course, Princess, Virgo said before she began to spin wildly. She then dug into the ground and appeared on the other side of the barrier. Awesome, Virgo. Lucy exclaimed as they entered the tunnel, using it to break through the barrier. Will you punish me, Princess? Virgo asked, an anxious gleam in her eyes. No, Lucy said with a drop of sweat, making Virgo look disappointed. So, you're that kind of pervert, Karama said, looking at Lucy with a strange expression. Shut up, Lucy exclaimed before turning to Virgo. Anyway, thanks, Virgo. Anything for you, Princess, Virgo said with a bow before disappearing. Okay, let's go. Urza exclaimed as she hijacked another SEP vehicle. Where are Fox and Kurama? Natsu asked as he searched for the two. They're already gone? Gray said, surprised at how fast they went. Hurry up, he can't take on Grigor alone. Urza exclaimed as everyone got into the car, except for Natsu, who made Happy carry him with his wings, not realizing that a shadow merged with his. Meanwhile, Aragorn laughed as he flew across the train tracks, using it to keep the tornado moving. With the fairies trapped, no one will stop me from killing those arrogant bastards, he stated as he continued to fly. Do you really think we'll leave you? Said a voice behind him. Startled, Aragorn looked behind him and was punched in the face, knocking him away from the tornado. He looked up and saw Fox and Kurama in the air. You, Aragorn growled. I should have killed you on the train, you trash fairy. You can't kill me, Fox stated as Kurama dropped him onto the rails. You are not strong enough. Not strong enough? Aragorn said in a dangerous tone. I'll show you what strong means. He raised his scythe, which was covered in wind, and slashed at it, sending a wave of sharp blades made of wind towards Fox. He simply moved his head to dodge the wind blade, causing his cape to billow, which hit one of the mountains, cutting part of it. See that trash? Aragorn exclaimed as Fox stood there. Oh, what's wrong? Did that scare you? Not really, said a voice behind him. Surprised, he turned and saw another fox. What? He exclaimed before two more appeared at his sides. N.A. The one in front of him exclaimed as he punched Aragorn in the jaw, sending him flying. Rue, another exclaimed as he kicked Aragorn's back, sending him flying. The third exclaimed as he did a roundhouse kick to Aragorn's abdomen, causing him to spit out blood globules. Uzumaki barrage, they exclaimed as the first two kicked him towards Fox, who grabbed him across the face with his left hand and slammed him into the metal rails. Grigor was unconscious, bleeding, and bruised. Each accessory was laced with chakra, so he felt like being hit with a steel ball. I wasn't even trying, he said as the shadow clones disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Nice job, Karama said as he landed on Fox's head. Fox then took out some thin wires, wrapped them around Aragorn, and then placed a sealed tag on his head, sealing the magic from him, just in case. He then grabbed the lullaby from Aragorn's belt. Here's, a voice exclaimed. They looked up and saw Natsu and Happy flying towards them. Natsu's eyes widened when he saw Aragorn's condition. No way. You beat him? I wanted to do that. No, you hit him, Fox said, causing Natsu to look at him. I was just tying it up. No, I did not do it. Natsu exclaimed. You did it. I don't know what you're talking about, Natsu-san, Fox said as the others arrived. No way, did he beat Aragorn? Gray said with wide eyes. I told you he was strong, Lucy said smugly. Nice job hitting him, Natsu-san. Fox yelled, surprising them. It sure was a great fight. I didn't beat him, Natsu exclaimed in anger. Ma, don't be so modest, Fox said, waving his hand dismissively. Why is he hiding it? Urza thought as he looked at the defeated Aragorn. He can be more than a C-class magician, even become an S-class magician. Oh, here's the lullaby, Fox said as he handed Urza the flute. Thanks, trash, a voice called out from below them as Kageyama appeared from Natsu's shadow, dressed in bandages, passing the flute and heading towards the SEP car. He plugged it in and activated the vehicle, driving past the surprised wizards. Shit, he has the lullaby. Gray exclaimed. After him, Urza exclaimed and they began to run at their full speed. Kurama, can you still fly? Fox asked Kurama who groaned from his head. Too exhausted, he said with a sigh. Me too, Happy said wearily. I guess we'll run then, Gray commented as they followed the clues. I'm surprised you can keep up, Lucy, Urza said as he looked at the blonde. What's that supposed to mean? Lucy said with a pout, though she too was surprised. She only trained for a few months, and she's already as fast as them. She smiled and looked at Fox's back, feeling grateful. Later, the group finally reached the guild master's meeting room as the night finally caught up with them. Lucy was panting slightly while the others seemed fine, although Gray and Natsu were sweating a bit. Only Urza and Fox didn't seem out of breath. He's over there, and he's with the old man, Fox said, pointing to the right. They all quickly walked over and saw Makarov sitting on a rock as Kageyama was about to play the flute. Old Ma, Natsu and Gray were about to scream when large, burly hands appeared in their mouths. Now, said a male voice that tried to sound female, causing both of them to turn white as they looked at the one holding the mouth. Just relax and watch. He was a balding man in his 50s, dressed in a purple dress, wearing makeup and jewelry, with a set of wings on his back. Who is he? Lucy said as she walked away from the old man. Greetings, Master Bob, Urza and Fox said politely as the latter bowed to him. Blue Pegasus's master? Lucy exclaimed in shock as she looked at the man. My god, Urza-chan, you grew up so beautifully, Bob said as he held Natsu and Gray, who were trying to escape. And Fox-kun, still mysterious, I see. How I would love to see the man under the mask. But I guess I'll settle for these two beauties. Help, the two pleaded. Just sit back and enjoy the show, brats, said another old man with shoulder-length sandy hair, wearing a black pointy hat, pointy dog collar, and shades, dressed in orange and black. Let Maka handle this. You are the master of Quattro Cerberus. Lucy exclaimed. That's Master Goldmine, Urza explained as Fox bowed in greeting. They all looked at Makarov and Kageyama before. I can do this, Kageyama thought as he placed the instrument close to his lips. Once I play this, everything will change. I know it will. Well, I'm waiting, young man, Makarov said calmly. He tried to play it, but something was stopping him. I need to play this. Kageyama thought as he sweated. I just have to play a song, and everything will change. Nothing will change, Makarov said, causing Kageyama to look at him in shock. You can't change the fact that the weak will remain weak forever, but personally, that's not a bad thing. Humans are weak by nature, but our weakness is the reason guilds exist and why we have people around us. Those we can call comrades. With comrades, we can face the future without uncertainty. Think of it this way, we may stumble on the path we walk, but we choose to walk that path and commit our lives to the fullest, live in faith and let our inner strength emerge in our darkest times. Don't let that silly flute ruin it for you. Everyone, even the guild masters inside, listened attentively to his speech. Kageyama looked at Makarov with excited eyes before dropping the instrument and falling to his knees. I give up, he said quietly. Natsu, Gray, Lucy, Happy, and Urza cheered and ran toward their teacher, surprising him. What are you brats doing here? He asked him before Urza banged her head against the metal plate on his chest. Oh. Your speech from him really moved me, Master, Urza said happily as he released the old man, who was rubbing his head. That's why I joined Fairy Tail, said a voice that surprised Makarov. He looked over and saw Fox with Karama on top of him, walking towards him. Fox, what are you doing with this crazy group? Makarov asked, pointing to the other brats of his. We just had the same fate, Fox said as he pulled out a brown package and handed it to Makarov. Here's your obscenity, you old pervert. Makarov gasped as he grabbed the package and ripped the paper. The package cast a golden glow in front of Pervert's eyes when they saw Icha, Stranded Love, which features an image of a scantily clad woman playfully running away from a half-naked man. Finally published, he clapped his hands as he held the book up in the air. Hey, is that the new volume? Goldmine asked with a smile and a blush. Yes, Makarov exclaimed as he held the book dreamily. I waited weeks for this to be published. Oh, Maka-chan, you pervert, Bob said as he laughed. Lucy sweated as the three powerful wizards in front of her acted like this while Urza looked at the book with a gleam of interest in her eyes. She pondered as she looked at the book. Her name is familiar to him somehow, but she didn't know why. Her eyes widened as she remembered that Fox mentioned Icha when she lent him her book. When Makarov opened the book, it suddenly broke into carefully cut pieces. Makarov paled as he looked at her precious one with eyes filled with despair. Ah, Fox said as she remembered him dodging Aragorn's attack. Some of the wind blades must have hit his cloak, so he cut the book without him knowing. It must have been destroyed when Natsu-san fought Aragorn. Don't blame me for this. Natsu exclaimed. And stop lying. "K, you humans are so pathetic," said a voice that made everyone stop. Fox looked at the flute, which released strong dark magic. "I'm tired of hearing this. It's time for me to eat you." Suddenly, the flute began to glow before it began to grow. The younger people looked on with shocked expressions as the flute turned into a giant wooden monster with 3 black eyes and flute holes. "What is that thing?" Lucy cried as she hid behind Fox. "It's Lullaby's true form," Goldmine said calmly as she crossed her arms. "My God, this is something," Bob said as he placed a hand on his cheek, not seeming concerned. "Is that thing Lullaby?" Kageyama exclaimed. "It's living magic, which was created by Zareth," Fox said in a calm tone. "No way, Zareth's magic?" Gray said with wide eyes. "The magic of ancient times? Now then, which one of you wants to be my first meal?" Lullaby said darkly. "It's been so long since I've had some tasty souls." "Like hell, you will eat our souls." Natsu yelled angrily, raising a fist. "How about I eat your soul? Hey, do souls taste good? Why are you asking me?" Gray asked. The guild masters saw Fox make a hand signal and a group of foxes quietly appeared. He waved his hand at them, making them nod, and disappeared in a blur. Fox looked at the assembled guild masters, who didn't seem worried, so there was no need for him to fight. But just in case, the clones he created would seal the monster's movements. Suddenly, the sound of marching footsteps caught their attention. They all looked up and saw a battalion of rune knights walking towards the monster, bearing spears, shields, and a flag waving proudly above them, displaying their symbol. "This is not something we can't handle," the lead knight exclaimed as he raised his spear. "Carry." The group charged, letting out loud battle cries at Lullaby, who merely snorted at them. The gust of wind hit the knights and half of them were sent flying. "Not even worth my time," he said as the knights looked at their fallen comrades before the monster. "Withdrawal," they exclaimed as they dropped everything they were holding. "Well, that was pathetic," Kurama commented as the wizards watched the knights run. "Damn, I'm so hungry, I'll eat them all at once." Lullaby exclaimed as he pointed at the wizards. "Fine," Fox exclaimed as he made the hand signal. Suddenly, Lullaby stopped moving as seals appeared all over her body. "What the hell? I can't move," he exclaimed with anger and confusion. They all looked up in confusion before seeing some shadowy figures running all over the monster before disappearing. "Natsu. Gray. Attack now," Urza exclaimed as she changed into her Heaven's Wheel armor. "While Fox has him pinned down." "Right," the two exclaimed as they followed Urza's example. "Ice make lances," Gray exclaimed as he created sharp spears made of ice, which pierced the monster's wooden skin. "Roar of the fire dragon." Natsu roared, unleashing a torrent of fire that burned through the monster's shoulder, spreading to his right arm. "Dance my swords," Urza exclaimed as all 10 swords flew at the monster, piercing and slicing through its skin. "Unbelievable," Lucy said with wide eyes, speechless at what she was witnessing. Those brats are impressive. What did you expect from the Makarov guild?" "Enough," Lullaby exclaimed in anger. "I can't move, but I don't need that to kill you. One song and everyone will die. That's how it is," Lucy exclaimed in panic. "Lullaby is a flute. All he needs is a song and it's over." "Say your prayers," she exclaimed as he took a deep breath. There was no sound. "What?" Lullaby said as he looked over his body and saw that it was full of holes of many sizes. "A flute can't make a sound with that many holes," Karama said with a smile as he stood next to Lucy and Happy. "That makes you worthless trash." "The cat has a point. It's not so scary now." "Grr. You bastards," Lullaby exclaimed as his mouth began to glow. "Vanish." He fired a yellow beam at the group of mages. The wizards watched as the beam approached, with Lucy closing her eyes, grabbing Kurama and Happy scared. Shadow Gray's secret arts, Pillar of Darkness. A large shadow emerged from the ground and turned into a large pillar that absorbed the lightning, shocking everyone. Lucy looked up and saw that the shadow was connected to Fox. "You will not harm my comrades," he said, and Lucy looked at him wide-eyed, blushing slightly. "Damn it," Lullaby exclaimed before her attention returned to the 3 attacking her. "Ice make cannon." Gray created a cannon made of ice, which fired chunks of ice at the monster, destroying its skin. "Blumenblatt," Urza exclaimed as she ran towards the monster and swung 2 swords, with the other 10 swords following the attacks, slashing at the monster further. With flames on the right hand and flames on the left hand, combing the flames together. Natsu said as he jumped towards the monster and combined the flames from his left and right hands. Fire Dragon's brilliant flame. The attack created an explosion that sent the monster flying into the air. You are all monsters," Lullaby screamed as she started to snap. Wow, they did, the guild masters and knights exclaimed as they looked at the 4 fairy tale mages who defeated the monster. Well, what did you expect from fairy tale? Makarov laughed, boasting about his magic of him. Good job you 3, Fox said as he greeted Natsu, Gray, and Urza. You have defeated the monster on your own. You helped too, Fox, Urza said with a small smile as he reverted back to her normal armor. No, I didn't, Fox denied. I didn't do anything. Stop lying, you bastard. Natsu exclaimed. Suddenly, a large piece of Lullaby landed in the guild master's meeting room, causing everyone to stare at it in silence. Makarov lost his boastful expression and paled as the guild masters turned to look at them. Well, we better run, Fox said as he grabbed Karama and Lucy, surprising the blonde. Run away. Happy exclaimed as he followed Fox. I'm sorry, Master, Urza said as Makarov began to cry at the thought of the expenses, the two of them following Fox's example with Gray at his side. Yes, get them. Natsu exclaimed as he ran off with the guild masters. Aren't you with them? Exclaimed the wizard next to him. Unbeknownst to them, someone witnessed their fight and took a keen interest in the mysterious Fox. I guess there's more to fairy tale than meets the eye, he said as he disappeared into the shadows. End chapter.